1. This happened Thursday evening. I just moved into a new apartment Tuesday, and of course, like anyone else, it takes a bit to find things and unpack everything. Also, I have recently adjusted the amount of medication I take for my organ transplant, so I become constipated quite easily. These are 2 pertinent pieces of information for this story. I was expecting guests for dinner at 7 p.m. I'd been rushing around all day, hanging paintings, removing plastic from new furniture, setting up my electronics, etc. As fate would have it, I suddenly have the urge at around 6:15. Okay, no problem. I turn dinner down to low and off to the restroom for eternity. 25 minutes of excruciating pain later, and I've successfully given birth to an 8-pound brown baby boy. I didn't die, although I felt like it, and I'm kind of laughing to myself when it hits me. That thing is the size of a puppy, and I have no idea where my plunger is at. Glancing at my phone, I notice it's now 6:45. Sheer panic. Guests are coming. Dusty the Dirt Man is in my toilet, and there is no way I could successfully flush that thing in even the mightiest of toilets. Quick logic. What can I do? After cleaning up and washing my hands, I come up with the greatest decision of all time. I go into my living room where my 250-gallon aquarium is set up. A quick apology and promise to get a new set for my lionfish later, and I'm at the toilet with a very large fish net. I capture the masterpiece quite successfully. And then it hits me. What do I do with it? I solved one problem, yet created another. This was my fuck-up and tactical error. I live on the 10th floor of a building shaped like an obelisk. There's no time to run it out in a bag of trash. We are T-minus 5 minutes from company arriving. I shake off the net over the bowl, so it doesn't drop. Hold the trash can under it, and run out the sliding door to my balcony. Life is good. Shit. It's 70 degrees outside. What if someone wants to smoke or get fresh air on the balcony? In a moment of brilliance, panic, and fucking up, I flung the poo-filled net off of the balcony. Keep in mind, the building is tapered, so I have to get enough distance to clear the other balconies. I also didn't account for the breeze. My Play-Doh poop man landed right on the sidewalk at the entrance to the building. At a height of 10 stories, I could only imagine the impact zone that made, or where in the world the net may have ended up. I saw them separate on the descent, but I didn't care, because I just pulled off the greatest crap caper ever, and I was home free. I returned inside, made sure there was no evidence of anything, washed again thoroughly, resumed cooking dinner, and my phone rang. It was my fiancée, saying her family had to cancel, and she'd be over later because when they arrived, her mother slipped on what turned out to be the largest piece of crap ever, and turned her ankle. Update. Her mom is fine, and I haven't said anything. I did receive a text from her mom Saturday morning. Good morning, sorry for the last-minute cancellation last night. I'm sure Brandy explained. My ankle will be fine according to the doctor, just ice and ibuprofen. Brandy said the apartment is $2,700 a month. People really need to clean up after their pets for that. It brings the entire place down. Have a good day. Hope to see you soon. 2. So currently I am staying with my grandma while I go to my local community college. She lives in a neighborhood with 24/7 security officers that patrol at night. Tonight I had a class late and had planned to spend the night at a friend's house since I don't have any Wednesday classes. However, my friend got called into work last minute, so I decided to head home. Here is where the fuck-up began. I completely forgot to let my grandma know that I'd be coming home, and she didn't expect to see me until Wednesday night. So, I drove home and her car was gone, and the lights all off. I was a little confused, but thought maybe she ran to the store or something. As it turns out, she had taken her car into the shop earlier today, and had turned in for an early night. I let myself in and headed towards my room, using only my phone for light. When I turned the hall, I saw a dark figure and panicked. turning and running to the front door. I quickly got in my car and drove a few blocks down, calling the cops and frantically explaining the situation. Since this neighborhood is pretty far from the station, they contacted the private security to respond first, and said they'd be there for backup as soon as possible. Fast forward about 20 minutes, and I'm standing with a security guard out front of my grandma's house, while 3 others patrol the area. Another 15 minutes and the cops show up just in time to see the other security guards come out from a neighbor's side yard with my handcuffed and very confused grandma. Now, from my grandma's perspective, she knew I wasn't coming home tonight and had settled in for an early night. She woke up not too long after and wanted to get a glass of water. God knows why she didn't turn on the light. Anyways, she opens up her door to see a tall intruder stumbling in and shining a flashlight at the floor. Still groggy from just waking up, she gets the hell out of there without a second thought. She runs out her back door into the yard and lets herself out the back gate, onto the hiking trail that runs behind all the houses. She then runs down 2 houses to a neighbor that she knows well, and lets herself in the back gate, running to their house and frantically banging on their back door. Of course, the stars had to align just right for this to happen, and they did. The neighbors weren't home. I guess then my grandma heard some voice and got incredibly scared that the intruder was coming after her. So she hid in this neighbor's doghouse. Good thinking, Grandma. Of course, the security followed the trail of open gates and made it to the backyard. My grandma saw the security and ran out thinking she was saved. Unfortunately, these guys aren't exactly the best and brightest, so they detained my grandma and didn't listen to a word she was saying. After a lot of explaining from both of us, the cops laughed profusely. The security guys apologized profusely, and everyone was on their way. Luckily, Grammy is doing well. She wasn't hurt at all, and thinks this whole mess is quite funny, but I still feel awful. This literally just happened and I'm still wound up, so I hope I didn't leave out any essential details. I guess at least the family will have something fun to laugh about at Easter brunch. 3. So, because of circumstances beyond my control, this didn't happen today. Cue my first date with a girl I met on Tinder. We met up at a restaurant and got to talking. Things are going great. She thinks I'm funnier in person. When does that ever happen? She actually invites me to the mall to hang out more with some of her friends when dinner is over. So after the food arrives, the conversation turns a little more towards how we met. Pay close attention and you will spot my mistake. She states she's glad I'm normal and not some sort of serial killer. Now, I could have just laughed. I could have, but I was funny, remember? I replied with, "Oh, thanks for thinking I'm normal, but I actually am a serial killer. Bodies for days buried out at the farm." She laughed, I laughed. I thought I did great at making it sound sarcastic. She excuses herself to the bathroom to do whatever girls do in bathrooms on dates. It was taking a questionably long time for her to return, and I was slightly worried she bailed and stuck me with the bill. My luck, right? Wrong. So, unbelievably wrong. My luck was worse as police officers suddenly appear out of nowhere and tell me to keep both of my hands visible on the table. At this point, I'm confused. This must be a joke. I see my date coming with a staff member and get ready for Ashton Kutcher to appear. No such luck. The police ask if it's me and she says, yeah. The cops get me to stand up and handcuff me and walk me out. Not a single person seems to want to answer any of my questions. I'm in the car and the police are outside talking to my date for a few minutes, when they get into the car with me and ask me if I told my date I was a serial killer. Are you fucking kidding me? I tell them yes, but I was joking. Life pro tip: don't admit to police you told someone you were a serial killer. So that derailed my plans. I spent the next 5 to 6 hours explaining myself, over and over and over, that I was kidding. I guess eventually they either believed me or got tired of hearing me speak, much to my lawyer's disapproval. To me speaking. and let me go and reminded me that my jokes suck. I'm not sure how date number 2 will go, but I'm excited to find out. Also, a bright side is that I have no idea who paid for my food. 4. I was in the 5th grade when this happened. For our school, a swimming carnival would be held yearly. I was a shit swimmer, and still am. The school usually teaches students how to swim when they are in the 1st grade. However, they were too full to take me in for lessons when I was younger. On the day of the carnival, I had gotten last place in every race. But anyway, let me get into what happened on the most embarrassing day of my life. Now, this is a 50-meter pool, which for you Americans would be around 165 feet. And there had to be well above 500 spectators there that day. It was my turn to swim. There were 8 people in my heat. It was 50 meters of freestyle. After watching all the heats in front of me disappear, that was when I knew it was my time to shine. Or so I thought. The teacher was counting down from 3 seconds for us to start the race. 3, 2, and suddenly a kid decided to dive in the pool early, but he realized what he did and climbed back out. But not me. When I heard the splash in the water, I thought that meant they started racing. I dived in as well. I could have just gotten out of the pool as well, right? Let me explain why I didn't. So I looked in front of me and saw nobody there. Holy shit, I must be coming first, I thought to myself. I could hear my friends next to the pool repeatedly saying my name to get my attention so that I would leave the pool. My dumbass thought that they were cheering me on. Everything was too blurry to see as my goggles were filled with water. So I imagine everyone was waving their arms around or trying to get my attention. This is why I could see the water in front of me. And how nobody was in front of me either, but everything was too blurry to see from a longer distance. I thought I had been coming first, on my way to the gold medallion. In reality, really, I was going slow as shit, being the only one in the pool, swimming the whole thing without even knowing the race hadn't started. And there were hundreds of people watching. You'd imagine that it ends with me reaching the end and realizing what happened. No, it just got worse. My mum has a bright idea to strip down in her brand undies and dive in the pool, and then my teacher also has to dive in the pool. She tapped my shoulder, I looked up and shat fucking bricks. It dawned on me. I was the only one in the pool. Everyone was laughing at me for days. And my teacher could have stopped when I hadn't swum the entire thing. I was 10 feet from finishing. I didn't actually see my mum dive in, but my friend told me the next day. I then went to start again so we could have our race, and of course get last place. That was 7 years ago, and I still go to the pool to this day. 5. Back in 2014, a male cousin of mine fell in love for the first time in a long time. The last time he was in love, I assume, was some time back when he was an older teenager, just getting comfortable with the idea that one could end a bro hug with no homo, but still be very much homo on the inside. The homo came from the inside to the outside, and there he was, a gloriously gay young man, more happy with himself than I had ever seen him, and more ready to have a boyfriend than probably anyone has ever been on the face of the earth. So began a string of ultimately unsuccessful relationships. He reports to me that he learned a lot about sexually satisfying a partner, but little to nothing about emotional satisfaction. Oh well, most people don't fall comfortably in love as a teenager, unless they're in a John Green novel. Then he goes off to college, trailing a rainbow behind him all the way, and has an okay thing with a guy who we shall call Mr. Almost Right for purposes of anonymity. In the first year of university during this time, Mr. Almost Right introduces my cousin to the university and town's gay scene. He knows it pretty well, since he is in second year at the time they met. Here my cousin meets the man who is the subject of this story. Victim, shall we say. The man is nearly perfect. When my cousin first met him, He said there might have been an angelic fanfare. A bright spotlight came through the clouds and backlit the gorgeous man sitting on the plastic McDonald's chair. And my cousin's relationship with Mr. Almost Right was lost. There was just no way he could keep trying to make a go of it with Mr. Almost Right when Mr. Demigod has arrived on the scene. Mr. Almost Right was a good-looking dude. Mr. Demigod had probably at some point stopped traffic with a smile and caused insta-orgasms by bending over and inadvertently showing off his behind. If attractiveness could be converted into a currency, this guy would have made Bruce Wayne look like a peasant. If we still lived in an era where wars were started over beauty, Mr. Demigod would have made the War of Helen of Troy look like a toddler's slapping match. The pictures my cousin sent of this guy when Mr. Demigod first came into his life made me want to believe in God again. His ass was a miracle of geometry, a true, perfect sphere, existing in nature at last. But then my cousin had been with Mr. Almost Right for 6 months, and didn't feel it was right to dump him for a new guy he had just met. We talked it out over the phone, and agreed he would wait to see if the euphoria he felt would wear off. It did. And in its place my cousin is left with a genuine, enduring affection for Mr. Demigod, while still awkwardly dating Mr. Almost Right out of a sense of duty. He gets to know Mr. Demigod properly. There are things he likes about Mr. Demigod, and there are things he does not like about Mr. Demigod. The former hugely outweigh the latter. My cousin waits and waits for his feelings to go away, and they just get firmer as he realizes that yes, something really could work out with this guy. This just might be the love the chick was singing about, not being in during that one scene in Hercules. Mr. Demigod is a first year too, joining the year a little late because of some clerical financial errors and bullshit. He finds my cousin fascinating for being independent enough to live off campus in his very own house share. Also, my cousin has this trick where he can balance 12 spoons on his face, and I'd like to think that trick had a large part in ultimately attracting Mr. Demigod to him. Anyway, 8 months into Mr. Almost Right and my cousin's dating career, Mr. Almost Right transfers out to another university. In what is either a surprising stroke of luck for my cousin, or a dick move on Mr. Almost Right's part. Or both. He makes it clear he has no interest in trying a long-distance relationship with my cousin. He essentially dumps him at the terminal as my cousin is leaning in to kiss him goodbye. The parting words are, "It was fun while it lasted." Most people would be devastated, but my cousin leaves the airport feeling like a man who has just escaped a date with the electric chair. By that night, everyone has heard Mr. Almost Right's dickishness at the airport terminal, and my cousin's friends have rushed to comfort him. They throw a big drink up to help my cousin forget what happened to him. Halfway through the night, Mr. Demigod shows up. They don't even say a word. What happens next is so rom-com, I didn't believe it happened, until a few of my cousin's friends confirmed it for me. They just reach for each other and kiss. Turns out Mr. Demigod had been carrying his own torch for my cousin for the last 2 months and a bit. Like I said, the spoon trick must have made my cousin irresistible. And so they date. They date like it's going out of style, and taking romance with it. I am flooded with calls and texts and posts about how wonderful the relationship is. Of course they fight. They have disagreements. Sometimes my cousin rushes to me for advice. In short, they behave like a healthy couple, learning to live with each other. And now comes the fuck-up. Looming on the horizon like a great mammoth cresting a tundra. So by midway through the second year, my cousin and Mr. Demigod have decided they want to move in together. Mr. Demigod hasn't had the chance to spend too many nights over at my cousin's place, because he has a strict curfew, and the kind of RA that makes a point of living right up your ass, even into the second year. And on top of that, a stressful academic load that takes sleep off the table most of the time, let alone overnight sex with his boyfriend. The point is, my cousin isn't quite used to having Mr. Demigod at his house, when he doesn't tell him he isn't going to be there. They arrange their nights together well in advance. There is no reason that Mr. Demigod should show up at his house without telling him. And this is fine with them. They make it work. So, on yet another evening spent sans the boyfriend, my cousin has finished studying for the night. He collapses on the downstairs couch in front of a slasher flick. He falls asleep shortly after. And here comes the fuck up. The next thing he is aware of is being carried through the darkness. Because he cannot see who has him. The horror movie still fresh on his mind, as is the fact that none of his roommates are home that week. My cousin's first thought is, I am being carried away by a murderer. My cousin instinctively punches upwards and hits his assailant in the face with all of his considerable force. At this point, he is dropped and rolls ragdoll limp down the stairs. His kidnapper was taking him upstairs to murder him in his own bed. It is only when he reaches the bottom of the stairs, is thumped upon by the assailant's body, and hears a familiar voice go, "Whoom," does my cousin realize what a stupid conclusion he has jumped to. "Mr. Demigod?" he cries. His boyfriend groans back. My cousin puts the light on, and discovers he has sucker punched his boyfriend in his perfect face. Not only has he drawn blood, but it is nose blood. Lots and lots of it. The stream of blood coming from Mr. Demigod's beautiful nose is truly alarming. Poor Mr. Demigod had unexpectedly gotten a few free hours. Being the sweet boyfriend he is, he decides he wants to spend these hours driving over to my cousin's house and cuddling up to him. He came in and found my cousin drooling in front of sleepaway camp, and planned to carry him upstairs, sleeping princess-like, tuck him in and lie down next to him, waiting till the morning to let my cousin know he was there at all. My cousin had to go ruin this by waking up while he was being carried up the stairs and punching his boyfriend in the face, and knocking them both down a flight of stairs. It was only because Mr. Demigod was looking down at him affectionately that he got him in the nose at all. Otherwise, he would probably have clipped him in the jaw. Mr. Demigod has to wear a nasal splint for several weeks afterwards. Amazingly, he brags about the incident. His boyfriend is so strong. His boyfriend has the reflexes of a tiger. His boyfriend can kill a man with one punch. Blah blah blah. This was 1 week before One Punch Man was a thing. Otherwise my cousin would most certainly have borne that nickname afterwards. They're still together today. Mr. Demigod's nose is no longer perfect. He now wears his nose at a rakish angle. But he is still jaw-droppingly attractive. My cousin is just now learning to laugh about the experience when it is brought up in conversation. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Embarrassing Stories, episode 32. Thank you very much to everyone who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Is it just me, or would you guys not have also given that kind of response to your date if she said she was glad you weren't a serial killer? No, just me? You wouldn't have said, you're not a serial killer, but you've got a full trunk, don't ask why, that sort of thing? You wouldn't have said, as far as you know? Or, well, how exactly do you define serial? No, just me. Okay, I'll shut up then. I'm also left wondering who you folks might have pictured as Mr. Demigod in story number 5 there. I'm sure you were all picturing someone. Okay, I've got one more video's worth of audio to record tonight. It is almost 20 to 4 in the morning, and I'm trying to clear my weekend out because I've got a bit of a project this weekend. If Amazon does their job, I should be spending Saturday, well, not all Saturday, I've done it before so it's easy enough to do. I'll be building a new PC, and let's just hope all the components I've ordered worked, because the computer I've got quite now is actually not a bad one, but it's a 3 years old, a little more maybe, and it's getting to the point now where it does work, it's just not as current as I would like it to be, and doing what I do for a living, I like to have things swift, shall we say. It also helps for new games and things coming out. I don't play a massive number of video games, but I do play some of them. And my interest is starting to get piqued I thought it was a gimmick at first, but it's starting to get peaked by virtual reality. And my current system, even though I did upgrade my graphics card, that will come out of the computer and go into the new one, doesn't quite have the muscle to handle VR properly. Could probably struggle by, but it doesn't quite have the muscle. And I did recently learn, about a month or so back, they're actually doing a Star Trek game that lets you feel like you're on the bridge of various ships. I think there's DLCs for various ships coming out, so yeah, I'm intrigued. So that was that, plus work, and that it would be good having something with a bit more horsepower to do my work on, to make my videos on. That was the final thing that let me convince myself that it was time to upgrade. Okay, and with that I think I'm going to head off, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.